Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024, The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. Now, this video is going to be strictly on the structure of the new CRA structure. The constitutional amendment I want to propose to replace the federal constitution, state constitution, local constitution, and change the foundations of government to greater liberty, more freedom, less monopolized government. So if you want more socialism, you can have it, but you have it within only your group. Allow socialists to be socialists, more freedom-minded people to be freedom-minded, allow people to be governed the way they want to be governed. Competitive governing agencies, competitive regulatory agencies, competitive representative agencies. So let's go through the simple structure of what I'm proposing, because I'm proposing a constitutional amendment to handle all the reforms, taking the military, the roads, the police, the courts, all these things into a free enterprise system, but having societal oversight over everything, some government but only as much as needed, no more than what's needed. Now, when I say government, only what's needed, as a monopolized government, have most of it competitive governance. So if you want very little, you can have very little, but you get what you pay for. Let's go through what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is, and the whole Constitution is on my website, haley2024.org. Let's just go through. Here's a simple structure. You have to understand that we're going to split all government power into 30 sectors. We'll get into that in a second. But within that, for each sector, you're going to have roughly 12 different competitive regulatory agencies. These are full governmental systems, so they govern, they regulate, and they'll send representatives up to the next level to handle things only when necessary to go across the whole monopolized jurisdiction, monopolized regulations within the jurisdiction. I know it's a new system. You might not understand it. Hopefully this is not the first video, but if it is, just try to understand, go through the website, and try to have a better understanding. So, let's go through it real quick. Here are the 30 sectors. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger on the screen. Here are the first 15. 5 in the charity system, 5 in the foreign protection system, 5 in the violent crime mitigation system. Here are the other 15. I'll go through them each in a little bit. But when I say we split it up, we don't have a president and then the secretary of each one. We have a total elected leader for each one. So a full Congress for just healthcare, a full president and governor and mayor just for environmental. So when you make your decisions on environmental or transportation or land and water or police, you pick based off of your philosophy of how you want to be governed and how you want to be represented within just that sector. So you have a lot better representation. Let's just keep on going because I'm going to talk too much. Okay, every person, every business, and every organization, and you have to be one of those three, will first select a CRA and an RA in all 30 sectors. CRA, again, is Competitive Regulatory Agency. It will govern, represent, and regulate. And the RA will get to the rating system side. It's extremely important, give you knowledge from a wide variety of perspectives. You pick your rating agency from the philosophy of how you want to be rated. Some people think that we need to be rated more from a liberal perspective, other people more of a conservative perspective, other people middle of the road, Green Party, whatever. They think differently. Allow them to have a choice and put out their voice in ratings and argue and debate and discuss based off of their philosophy. And you give your weight behind one of these rating agencies. And that matters. Let's keep on going. You do that for the federal, state, and local. These are full systems at the federal level, full system at the state level. Each state has its own. Every locality has its full system. So localities will have a certain amount of responsibilities, state will have a certain amount of responsibilities, and the federal government will have a certain amount of responsibilities. So the federal government will be doing the foreign policy, foreign policy in the military. States will have the bulk of the power in many of the areas, many of the sectors, and the local government will have certain powers, kind of like they do now. Let's keep on going. So let's just go back here real quick. 30 sectors, 30 for the RA and 30 for the CRA. That's 60 for the local, 60 for the federal, 60 for the state. So 180 associations. That seems like a lot. We can handle it. I have a system to make that not so burdensome. But you really get represented by the philosophy you want to be represented by and governed by in this system. Right now, if you vote for the president, you have to take his present policy with his healthcare policy and his military policy and his foreign policy, all of that wrapped up in one vote. You get to split it up and say, I like this guy for environmental, this guy for family law, and this guy for insurance regulations. Let's keep on going. Okay, we actually sign a CRA social contract saying that you will become a member of a CRA and RA in all 30 sectors. So this is one of the clauses in the Constitution. And by the way, everything you read up here, some of them are clauses, some are not, some are just telling you how it's working, other ones are actual clauses. So this, every entity, which means I first said citizens, this clause is for every entity. So if you're an outside entity, you still have to be governed if you're coming in here other than like a small vacation. Especially if you're doing business, you have to be governed, but you're not going to have votes if you're not an American citizen. You can read it. This is going to be simply a structure. I'm going to try to go 15 to 20 minutes on this. So this is an example of one of the sectors. We have 12 different sectors that qualify because you have to qualify. You have to be 5%, get at least 5% of the people to be your members to qualify, and no more than 20. We'll go over that in a second. But here's an example. CRA A has 7.28%. Now the decimal points are going to go out as far as needed, so every change in membership will affect representation. So CRA B will have 18% of the 18.03% of the vote and representation because they have 18.03% of the citizens. CRA D has 5.68. CRA F has 13.46. I believe I did my numbers right, but that should equal up to 100%. That's an example of different CRAs having different amounts. You must be governed. You must be governed in every sector. A business must be governed in every single sector. And that's how you get your representation. And that's how you get your governance. That's where you get your representation. A CRA only governs its members. So if I pick CRA A, my neighbor picks CRA C, lady down the street picks CRA F, then I get governed by mine, my neighbor, the lady down the street. They all get governed only by their CRA. I don't have to be governed by theirs. Now, if I do business with them, I have to do business under a CRA. So if I do a business with a bank or a restaurant or something, I might have to do business underneath their governance. That's fine. I can make that choice. A CRA is a semi-governmental organization. This is an actual clause in the Constitution. Semi-governmental is because it has governmental powers, but it's private because it only governs its members. But it has over 5% of the membership, 5% of the citizens that picked it, that selected them as a governing agency. So it's a governmental agency as well. So let's go to the next one. A CRA must have membership of at least 5%, and properly weighted means businesses get represented too. So if you have a business, it's going to be represented on sales and a couple different factors, depending on what. There's a lot of ways you can be weighted. I'm not going to go into that. Now, some of it's going to be strictly citizens, especially for foreign policy and different things like that. So it's between 5 and 20%. So if a CRA grows more than 20%, they just basically split, have the same philosophy, and then people choose which one they want to go with. And most likely, anytime you get over 20%, you're going to have some divisions, no doubt, and people want to go a little bit more conservative, a little bit more liberal, a little bit this way or that way. And people will divide up. Every CRA must have a legislative branch, an executive branch, and a judicial branch. These are full governmental systems. Members elect CRA leadership. Now, you might just want to send your proxy up to somebody that you trust within each one. You read up on them, or you just say, I want to be governed by you. My vote is going to go to the majority. If I don't like what you're doing, I'll switch to another one. You just keep on making sure you are governing within the mission statement that you put out there, within your philosophy, and then I'll keep on being governed by you, unless I see somebody else doing a better job. Members of a CRA vote on the leadership and representation. So when you go up to the CRA level, the sector board level, you have to send representatives up there. And again, you can have that vote directly. We never take it away from you. But if you just want to say, hey, just take care of it for me. I like what you're doing. You're a good person. You're a good organization. Send up good representation. As long as I see that you're doing it in a manner that matches your mission statement, your philosophy, then I'm good with you. So people aren't going to have to sit there daily watching them all the time. But the rating agencies will. If they give them bad ratings or say they're not dealing with their mission statements, that's going to come out very easily. And you can either switch or then really get politically active within your CRA. So you can turn over your general proxy or allow your vote to go to the majority. So I'm just saying people aren't going to always be politically active because your CRA is going to compete for your membership. They know that you can leave and go somewhere else. So they better be staying with their philosophy. Bylaws must address members turning over their proxy votes to representatives within their CRA. So this is an actual clause. This right here is just saying how it works. But this is a clause in the Constitution there. CRAs proportionally staff their sector board and their parent sector board. The parent sector board, they just define what sector has certain responsibilities. They don't govern whatsoever. They can never regulate. They cannot do hardly anything besides manage the separation of powers between the 30 sectors. That's their main job. Just because they're at the top of the food chain doesn't mean they get to have the power over anybody below them. That's not the issue. They have the power to decide what sector governs what, but that sector board is the top of the food chain for what is given to them. Okay. But then it could belong down to the CRA. It takes a lot to get it up to the sector board level. Sector board level is a monopolized regulation, not so much governance, but regulations, because the sector board will regulate across the whole board if necessary, but then governed by the CRAs, their regulations. That not too much is going to get there. Most of the regulations are going to be at the CRA level. The rating system parent sector board is structured the same as the CRA parent sector board. So this is going back to the Constitution. It's a clause in the Constitution that the CRA side and the rating system side is the same of the structure. They do different things, but it's the same structure. The sector board is the same as the rating system. And again, if you're not reading the Constitution, that doesn't mean too much to you right here. read the Constitution. The rating agencies are the same as a CRA, so that's the lowest level. That's what you pick as a RA, the rating agency, and the CRA, and then they send representatives up to the other ones. And when I say they, either they do it or they vote, depending on how the CRA or RA decides to do it, and that's going to be part of your decision making when you select a CRA. How do they send representatives up? How do they handle the voting? Okay, so if you have two restaurants to choose from, one with a rating on food safety of 60 and the others with a rating of 80, 80 being better. Consumers will pick the rating of 80, the restaurant with a better rating, and make the restaurant with a 60 rating pay the price of lower standards. So people will automatically think, hey, if you have lower standards, every business is going to pick the lower standards. Well, not when it's on the front door. Not when the rating has to be posted on the websites and just noticeable places everywhere that restaurants doing business. So when you walk in, nobody wants to see low food standards. Nobody wants to see that you discriminate against somebody because of the color of their skin or other factors. Nobody wants to see that you did that. And the ratings are going to make people pay the price because the consumers will know. Now, and it's going to be hard to lie. A monopolized rating system, that's easy to lie and to punish somebody. But when you have competitive rating agencies and everybody rates within their philosophy, and you're choosing who you're doing, and they can fight back and have a debate with the other rating agencies, so we come up with a good information. Now, they might not agree, but at least they're going to have a good discussion, and you're going to be able to see that and see where people stand. Anyway, there's a lot to get into on the rating system. Okay, so Sector 25, CRAs must ensure all entities are members of a CRA and RA in all 30 sectors in the federal, state, and local CRA structures. This is where it's going to make it easier for everybody. One of the sectors, the identity sector, they're tasked with the job of ensuring all entities, all people, all businesses, all organizations are in all these 30 sectors. They make sure. That's their job. They have other jobs too, but that's part of their job. So, they're most likely going to have a website. There will be many of these, of roughly a dozen, maybe even more out there at the city, state, and local level. So there'll be big organizations that do this. Have a really good app, a website, whatever, with all the sectors. Lets you pick easily what CRA to represent. Each one's going to have a different fee schedule because every CRA charges fees. That's instead of taxes, they charge fees. And except for sales taxes for the military, which is a different thing. We'll get into it later and on that video. But so Sector 25 is going to be able to be a one-stop shop on picking your CRAs, paying for your CRAs, having a one fee go to everywhere. Now, once you're in a CRA, they might have their own website and to do a lot of different things. But your identity sector is going to be in charge of the elections and elections within your CRAs and elections for representatives. They're going to be managing all that. They're going to make sure you are represented. They're going to make sure you are a citizen. That's going to be a standard across the whole board. And there's going to be certain standards, monopolized standards, to make sure who's a citizen and who gets that representation and that vote. So there's a full system for that. So they're responsible for ensuring and coordinating fees, tax obligations, debt repayments for their members throughout the whole system, throughout the whole CRA structure, federal, state, and local. So you're going to have a one place to pay, and then that Sector 25 CRA or private business regulated underneath them. They will collect that fee. Probably going to be well over $1,000 a month. Let's not kid ourselves. The government is right now spending around $7 trillion over about 101, maybe 110 million households. It's like $60,000 per household. It's $5,000 a month for the average family. So we're not going to get into the fees right now. Some people are going to do business under their CRAs, and some people are going to do business where the CRAs just regulating, and you're going to pay for the private business underneath them. The police contract, your education, your a lot of different things, your charities. You're going to pay directly to the police department versus paying it through the CRA. But then this Sector 25 has to ensure that you did pay, because that's the agreement that you set up with society in the CRA social contract. So Sector 25 will coordinate all fees in one-stop website connected to the charity economy. This is not one of the clauses. This is just information that will happen. There's enough clauses to make all this stuff true. Now, you don't have to have a website technically, but most likely that will happen. But you can pay fees in the charity economy as long as they accept your work. Everything's two-sided agreements. So Sector 25 would handle all elections within the CRA structure. Kind of went over that a little bit. The Sector 25 Sector Board must set the standards consistent with this amendment on voting eligibility and assign each CRA a percentage of the sector. Each CRA is exclusively responsible for operating its CRA elections and submitting voting results to the CRA Sector Board. So Sector 25 handles all the elections, and they are responsible for reporting up to the Sector Board level what the results are. Legislative, executive, even judicial. There'll be staff in those things from CRAs. Your ID CRA which is Sector 25, will have a one-stop website. So they're going to be able to handle it. Federal, state, and local. One-stop system. You're not going to be doing a state tax form anymore. Your CRA is going to be taking care of a lot of that for you. Your Sector 25 ID identification sector. So, this is almost done with this. Now let's go through each one. The charity system, we get rid of welfare altogether. We go to a charity system. This is not talking about it on this video, but each one of these has a full sector. They do things differently. We split charity into 3 sectors: the family law and religion, other sectors. Obviously, we don't regulate religion, but it's at this level because it's so important to people's lives. But we never mandate anybody gets regulated by religion. They can help you organize, and there's a lot of things to get into. But anyway, the foreign protection system, these are at the federal level, has original authority at the federal level for all five of these sectors. But we split the top commander-in-chief of the commanders of the military from the top diplomat, from the top person over top of the military, because we go to a free enterprise military. Now they're very much controlled. Very much, you have to get authorization from societal oversight. Free enterprise does not mean just free for all. Military capability system, we have it's a free enterprise way of doing the military, to fund the military. You take tax funds, we separate it out because we do sales tax, do 5% of GDP, and then the system does it based off of military capabilities. And there's a full system for that. We'll talk about that when we get to that section. The violent crime mitigation system, the people making the laws or for violent crime is different than the people making laws for every other thing. But this is just violent crime. This is prosecuting people for violent crimes. Here the law enforcement are just the police and how that is managed. The law enforcement authorization, that is societal oversight role. That is authorizing anybody with inherent government power. The judicial authorities, that's the court. Separate set of representatives. Private courts, or when I say private courts, these are semi-governmental organizations, but they have to have standards. They cannot violate civil liberties. That's all in here. I have a system, and there's 3 or 4 different strong methods of stopping bad things happening here. Prisons and corrections, that's going to be in there. Again, all private. Or within, if you want to call CRA semi-governmental, then you can. But there's a way to fund it. You have to fund your prison CRA. You have to. You have to have a contract with them. You have to pay them a certain amount of money, and I have that based in here. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but I do have a method in here, and we can change that around if people think it needs to be changed around. I have a lot of different ways to fund different things, and we can use different methods. But the sector board can have that discussion and make that decision. But I have a system within this constitution that allows that to happen. Healthcare is split up into 2 sectors. Financials, 2 different sectors. We have a full new currency, competitive currencies, all backed up by things of real value. It's a really good free market currency, and really having over 600 different currencies within the United States, all but with one standards, no exchange rates or anything like that. A way to do that where it's going to be, there won't be any inflation. You can't have inflation under my currency. It just doesn't happen. When you have 600, you have to compete. And if one is just doing it badly, they're going to lose the business. And anyway, insurance has a set. Food has a sector. Education, total private education. But if you want to stay with the public school system, your CRA can be a public school CRA, competitive regulatory agency. They can collect taxes just the way they are now. But if you don't want that, you want to go to a more libertarian, more school choice, more whatever, you can choose one you want. You can have one that you can pay for a lot of money into your CRA and have long-term payments, by the way, just like we do now. Or you can have just a inexpensive oversight and you pay for your private schools on your own. It's a new way of doing it. So if you can still have the public school nature on some of them, but with that competitive nature of whether people want to go into that or not, you can. Manufacturing, human resources, and sales is going to be a major taxing sector. Identity and personal and business is going to be so important. I was able to put in so many things that's going to make government a lot better. Environmental, obviously the EPA. It's just so much we can do in the rating system side of this. So much. Having competitive regulatory agencies and the rating system on that is just going to be phenomenal for a better environment. Work safety and disability. A lot of things are going to go into this. It's a little bit more of a catch-all, but those are 2 that are going to be in there. Transportation, the road system, full free enterprise. I have a payment system, transponders and the like, but it's full free enterprise. This is a structure video. We're not going to get into that now, but we will on another video. Media and communications, again, we have free speech, civil rights laws. In amendments within this, no problem. Land and water is going to be another sector dealing with land and water. Not so much with the environmental part of it, but noise ordinances, building codes, and just a lot of things dealing with land and water. And identity is going to be the ownership sector. So dealing with who owns what piece of land, that's a different sector. So land and water has a lot of responsibilities, but we split all government power into these 30. And if you don't see it on here, it'll go somewhere. So let's just finish up this video. Again, you have a parent sector board that is responsible for splitting the government power roughly evenly into 30 sectors. Now, roughly evenly is going to be off a lot of different factors. I mean, violent crime obviously doesn't involve so much money. Banking involves a lot of money, so it's not breaking it down by money. There's a lot of governmental power, and we just break it down into 30 sectors and try not to have too much power into one versus another. We try to split it evenly based off a lot of factors. But the parent sector board decides that, but they never get to regulate within that. They decide who has that power, and they can kind of manage, make sure the full system is working correctly. The sector boards, that's a monopolized governance over the full sector, over the full jurisdiction of the local, the state, or the full United States of America. So, but you can only have power up there if it really needs it. A strong negative externality, and that cannot be taken care of by ratings or rating floors. But the societal oversight of giving military members governmental power, that's going to be a sector board level. The people who give law enforcement, prison guards, and judges and DAs, that's real governmental power. That has to be given with a 70% vote. So they have to really mind their P's and Q's. And these are full governmental systems. And there's a couple other ones, especially the commander-in-chief and the foreign diplomat, that has to be done at the sector board level. But they're being governed. But almost everything else is at the competitive regulatory agency level, even environmental standards. It's important that it stays competitive. Family law and everything else. I mean, we currently have somewhat of a competitive governing agencies because you can move to Idaho or Wyoming, California, Virginia, New York, or Florida. You get to move to whatever state you want to move to and be governed by them. But without moving, I want there to be 12 within each jurisdiction, within each state, within each locality, within the full federal government. So I could be governed by a more conservative, libertarian, Green Party, Democrats, whatever that I want to be governed by. If you want to be socialist or communist, pick your CRA that is communist or socialist, but they only govern themselves. They cannot go outside of their outside of their CRA, outside of their membership for benefits or well, they can give benefits to anybody they want, but they cannot collect taxes from anybody outside unless somebody chooses to do business with them and chooses to do that. But you cannot force socialism on anybody, but you cannot force somebody not to be a socialist if they want to be a socialist. Anyway, so everything can be found on Haley2024.org. This is just trying to talk about the structure. We'll talk about civil liberties on another video. We'll talk about citizenship and original authority. There's so much to get into within this Constitution. And this was just trying to do a simple structure. Try to have you understand what's going on there. Until the next video.